SCP-8001 Containment Class Euclid Special Containment Procedures. Due to the relative difficulty of accessing SCP-8001 without assistance, SCP-8001 is considered to be generally self-containing. In the time since SCP-8001 was discovered by Foundation personnel and a base of operations was established therein, only 3 civilian vessels have come within 150 kilometers of an access point, and none met any of the other understood prerequisites for passage through those access points. Mobile Task Force Omega-91 Sentinels will maintain a persistent perimeter around the most common access points to SCP-8001 by way of a single Raymond Ho-class patrol vessel to be anchored at the K-162 floating research platform, roughly 25 kilometers from access point Aleph. Gaining access to SCP-8001 is not a well-understood process. Personnel attempting to reach SCP-8001 and the Island of Last Watch should observe Protocol 8001-105, which dictates the position, orientation, date, time of day, and atmospheric characteristics vessels are believed to need in order to pass into SCP-8001. Failed attempts to pass into 8001 will result in the vessel simply ending up further west than the 8001's understood position, at which point vessels may return to K-162 to attempt passage at a later date. SCP-8001 can only be accessed by a floating vessel. Flying machines such as airplanes, helicopters, airships, or gliders will inevitably find themselves blinded by the clouds of water vapor that surround 8001, regardless of the altitude or speed they are flying at, and regardless of their proximity to a vessel that makes successful passage. 8001 causes significant interference with radar and other imaging devices, making tracking vessels passing in and out of 8001 difficult. Similarly, submersible vessels cannot pass into 8001 unless they are surfaced throughout their passage, as direct line of sight with Last Watch is believed to be a prerequisite required to make the journey. The existence of SCP-8001 is routinely discussed within fringe internet communities and other flat Earth groups, making information suppression of 8001 relatively simple due to the obfuscation by association. The existence of 8001 does not negate the truth of the Earth being spherical, and the makeup of communities determined to assert the existence of 8001 or discover its location act as an informal barrier against discovery by more serious civilian scientific entities. Passage beyond 8001 is not currently believed to be survivable. Individuals who pass over 8001 are considered lost. Description: SCP-8001 is the edge of the planet Earth. The geological, geographical, or ontological origin of 8001 is unknown, and its existence in spite of the obvious and scientifically verified spherical shape of the planet exists as a logical impossibility that serves as the primary academic goal of researchers assigned to 8001. 8001 is not an extraplanar space or pocket dimension. Research teams stationed at Site-99 on the Island of Last Watch can be detected by GPS, can use satellites to make telephone calls, or transfer information digitally, and have launched rockets or flares that are visible to persons who are not within 8001's locality. 8001 exists as a sheer edge running north to south in the southern Pacific Ocean, over which the waters of the Pacific flow freely into an indeterminably deep void beyond. Approaches to 8001 by ship are precarious. Vessels can easily get caught in the rapidly moving water and be swept over the edge unless they follow a carefully charted path that maneuvers them past a series of shells that break up the flow of water, which ends up in a sheltered bay at the Island of Last Watch. This same passage can be made in reverse, allowing vessels to transit to and from SCP-8001 with relative safety, so long as they are following the correct passageway. 8001 creates a substantial amount of water vapor, which serves to obscure the vicinity around 8001 from outside observation. 8001 cannot be viewed from satellites or any other overhead camera, including those launched from within 8001. It is not known how far 8001 extends into the northern and southern directions, as many attempts to navigate away from Last Watch by ship inevitably ends in the vessel being swept over the edge of 8001, and any attempts to do the same from the air will either become lost in or obscured by the spray. The navigable portion of the waters leading to 8001 end at a rocky outcrop that rises from the sea floor. forming a small island roughly 1.2 kilometers square in area. The easternmost section of the island contains a small bay surrounded by shoals, from which the rest of the island can be accessed by way of a narrow staircase cut into the rock. At the center and north of the island is a mostly flat, wooded section upon which grow a variety of different kinds of trees, grasses, and brush. To the south of this area is a small rocky hill that serves as the home to a small graveyard, and to the west is a narrow outcrop of rock that hangs over the edge of 8001. A robust wooden walkway protrudes out over this outcrop, allowing individuals to pass over the edge of 8001 without falling. It is upon the flat wooded area that the Tower of Sunset is located, a moderately sized stone structure built in many conflicting architectural styles, likely over the course of many hundreds or thousands of years. The primary exterior portions of the tower are built in the ancient Roman Ionic style, with the westward-facing portico being an open gallery of limestone pillars supporting a triangular pediment, which extends back into a mostly rectangular inner cella that has been added onto all sides. There are examples of 17th century Spanish and 5th century Chinese influences, as well as more modern architecture dating as late as the early 19th century, with some fixtures being identified as originating from Britain, the United States, France, and the Netherlands. The primary and seemingly oldest feature of the tower is the tower itself, which is constructed in a mixture of Greek, Egyptian, Roman, and Mesoamerican styles. The tower serves two distinct purposes. Its primary role is as an oil lamp and reflector lighthouse, which is maintained by an 18th century automatic relighting system that appears to have, at some point, been retrofitted with more modern bearings and timing elements. The secondary role is as a library. The main floor of the tower, as well as most of the tower itself, and the two small basement levels all serve as an information repository for texts and writings seemingly collected over several hundred years of exploration that ended at SCP-8001. There are examples of journals, logs, charts, maps, diaries, and other texts in a wide variety of languages, including Latin, French, Greek, Farsi, English, German, Spanish, Chinese, Russian, Korean, Urdu, Portuguese, Amharic, and many others, as well as pictographic languages such as Nuado and ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The collection also contains a single piece of modern digital media storage, an early model Sony MP3 player manufactured in 2003 within a watertight plastic case, which is believed to have washed up on the island entirely by chance. Despite its watertight case, the MP3 player was damaged irrevocably by water ingress and is no longer operable. Much care has been made to preserve the text within the library at the Tower of Sunset, as evident by the significant amount of technology that has been fitted into the original ancient structures over many years to reduce the effects of moisture, light, and aging on the texts contained therein. Many of the texts have been transliterated from their ancient sources into newer, more resilient articles, but there are many that have decayed past the point of legibility. The oldest known piece of writing on the island, a set of Egyptian tablets dating back to what is believed to be at least 2300 BCE, are worn down past the point where they could be translated and are preserved only as a reference point. The most recent document found on the island prior to the Foundation's discovery of it in 1944 was a Chinese sea chart believed to have been printed in 1925, altered significantly in an apparent attempt by the owner to make sense of SCP-8001 and to attempt to chart a path away from it. Prior to the Foundation's arrival, the island of Last Watch had a single inhabitant, a sentient mechanical construct who maintained both the library and the lighthouse, as well as being a general caretaker of the island grounds. This entity, identified as SCP-8001-A, self-identified as Aurelie, and claimed to be the reconstituted sapience of a 16th century French explorer who had been marooned on the island at some point in the past. 8001-A is a clockwork entity whose locomotion and speech are controlled by a complex series of gears, diaphragms, pistons, and pulleys, all designed to mimic human behavior. Addendum 1. Discovery. The existence of 8001 has been thoroughly debunked throughout most of human history, with early Greeks having conceptualized a spherical Earth as early as the 5th century BCE. and with Eratosthenes' calculation of the circumference of the planet in 240 BCE, the recognition of Earth as a sphere became more widespread. Despite this, there have been numerous fringe groups throughout history who have, at different times, claimed the existence of the world as a flat plane with an edge running around its exterior. The first known exploration to discover this edge is believed to have been the ancient Roman sailor Faust Strabo, having set sail to discover the far west in the year 45 CE. Instead, ran into hardship as his ship and crew were marooned near modern-day Casablanca, their vessel having been unsuitable for blue water travel. Despite this, numerous instances of writing related to the edge of the earth persist within the historical record. Chinese writer Han Jinhai, writing in the 4th century CE, describes at length an accounting of fishing vessels and their crews, who, having been blown off course by a terrible storm, found themselves adrift in calm waters amidst a roaring tempest at the place where the world ends. Additionally, a 13th century account of an Indian vessel being lost on the high seas makes note of a terrible sound in the deep sea, as if the ocean itself were spilling over, and great sheets of white foam fell from the sky onto us. While these accounts do not describe the island of Last Watch, or any of the structures thereon, it does perhaps provide the first accounts of individuals who approached SCP-8001 and then returned. It is possible, and indeed likely, considering the age of the Tower of Sunset, that there were many more vessels who approached 8001 and either did not leave written record of their return to the rest of the world, were unable to leave, or, as is believed to be the case with the vast majority of vessels, attempted to reach or depart 8001 and were sent over the edge to their doom. The possible existence of 8001 was first made apparent to the SCP Foundation by way of a manuscript discovered during a series of arranged document transfers between the Foundation and the Horizon Initiative. The document in question, a detailed sea chart by Russian engineer and seafarer Boris Kozlov, contained an extensive description of the nature of 8001, including a depiction of the Tower of Sunset. The heading of the note reads as follows: a map of and possible additional routes to the long line at the end of the earth, and the tall tower that rests there, which, by way of a bright light, gives warning to vessels in their approach to a catastrophic end, which, by passing beyond, offers no hope of life or continuance of any kind. Due to the presumed remote location and logical impossibility of 8001, no action was taken to seek out and ascertain the existence of 8001. The chart was held in storage at Site 19 until March of 1942, when a Foundation vessel sailing between Panama and Auckland, New Zealand, passed close enough to 8001 to see a lighthouse, shining clearly, where no land is charted and no abnormality is known to exist. Further investigation of the area in the year following this initial passage revealed no sign of land. However, teams working to identify the unusual sighting rediscovered the Kozlov chart in storage, and using it as a rough guide, were able to make the first confirmed intended sighting of the Tower of Sunset in October of 1943. Early the following year, 2 additional voyages were undertaken to attempt to reach 8001. The first of these lost contact with the radio station in French Polynesia and was never heard from again. The second expedition, led by Captain Errol Meyer and the ship SCPS Windswept, found the passageway through the shoals near 8001 and moored at the island of Last Watch. Addendum 2 8001-A. Captain Meyer, along with a contingent of researchers from Site 402, made initial contact with 8001-A, who had noticed their approach and was waiting for the team near the small dock by the bay. 8001-A was described by Captain Meyer as a peculiar contraption, possessing unmistakably mechanical features, yet resembling a human figure in a curious manner. Clad in a modest gown and drab cloak, it boasts a slender frame of admirable craftsmanship and aesthetic appeal. Silhouetted against the light, one might easily mistake it for a woman, save for the moment it engages in conversation, dispelling any such illusion. Though its physical construction is a marvel of engineering, its method of articulation appears antiquated by contemporary standards. Nevertheless, its speech, though tinged with a discernible French inflection, is articulate and confident, bearing no resemblance to the mechanical mimicry of human speech. Next is a transcript of the initial interview between SCP-8001-A, conducted by Dr. Ivan Mann, who accompanied Captain Meyer on the expedition. Dr. Mann: this is a machine that can make record of our conversation. This part here. Yes, this is the part that captures our speech. 8001-A. Fascinating. And these moving parts? Magnetic film, where the sound is captured. It is both pen and paper of the recording, to use an analogy. Ah, pen and paper, I see. My voice will be stored here? It will, yes. Here, let me... Dr. Mann disconnects the recorder and plays the tape back to 8001-A. In his notes about this exchange, Dr. Mann called 8001-A delighted at the sound of its own voice. There you go. Now we're recording again. Now, on to the matter at hand. Did you tell me your name again, for the record? Yes, I am Orally. Who was it who constructed you? But what you see, this machine, it was built long before I came here. The original engineer was, I believe, Italian, though I do not know when it was constructed. It was kept in storage below when I arrived, and myself and my partner Armand spent some time working to complete it. You mean to say you were once like us? In some ways. The part of me that was who I was before was like you. I came here, as many came here, by accident. But while the others sought to try their luck with the waters, only myself and Armand stayed behind. The ship that brought us here, and the men we sailed with, did not survive the journey back. They went over the edge, you mean? Most do. Your vessel is in very unique company, I'm afraid. I have watched this tower for hundreds of years, and all but a handful of vessels who follow the lighthouse are caught in the rush of the falls and go over. Admittedly, the original builders of this tower did not seem to recognize their folly. Lighthouses are built on dangerous rocks to guide ships away from them. This may be the only lighthouse in the world where the danger is anywhere but directly towards it. This thing you are now, how did you end up like this? You must forgive me. The circumstances of my transformation are not something that is well recorded here. My memory of the time before I came like this is limited. What I know from the things I had written and the writings of others. I know I was wounded once. Why, I cannot say, but it was shortly after our arrival. The former keeper of this place was a man named Oladapo. He was, I believe, the one who suggested that I become as I am now, upon the termination of my previous form. After a brief pause, apologies, there is not much more I remember from that time. The early incarnation of this form was incomplete, and it did take quite some time for myself and Armand to finish it. You said the former keeper. Was there someone here when you landed? It was my understanding that there has always been someone here, in one way or another. There are records within this library going back several thousand years, and alongside them have been the notes and journals of those who, like myself, were tasked with keeping those records safe. Oladapo was the keeper before me, and Zhu before him, and Petra before him. By my count, there have been 63 such keepers on this island of Last Watch, though it is not beyond reason that there are others who were here before there are records kept. You call this place the Island of Last Watch. I heard you say that earlier as well. Do you know where that name came from? The first text here that names this place is a journal written by a man named Jason, who called it the Last Watch Before the End. His gravestone sits at the top of the stairwell coming up from the bay. You may have seen it in your passing. Written on it were the words Jason of Lolcus, Ender of the Last Watch. Though all that remains legible now are the last 3 words, as the rest were lost when the stone partially collapsed some years ago. Those who arrived afterwards seem to believe the marker was a nameplate for the island itself, and have thus identified it as so. Interesting. And the tower as well? The Tower of Sunset was first identified as such in an architectural drawing of the northern portico, likely due to an etching of a setting sun that was present in the original tower that faced in that same direction. who built the tower originally? I don't know. The tower predates even the oldest written record here by at least many hundreds of years. The first text here that references the tower says, "Built upon the very foundation of the world, in this place, a spire that rises through time itself, ancient and extraordinary. The hand that penned that line left this world more than 2,000 years ago." Addendum 3. Excerpts from collected documents. The following are several excerpts from documents archived within the Tower of Sunset, provided by 8001-A, which reference 8001 itself. The first one is from the 14th century journal of Eduardo Genovese. "A sight of great profundity, to behold the waves of the vast ocean surging downward into the heavens. Gazing intently into the mist, one discerns somber silhouettes, mayhap stones or vessels ensnared below, yet to plummet into the abyss. The sensation that grips the soul, whilst standing upon this precipice, is naught but a communion betwixt mortal and the divine. Such an overpowering apprehension of ultimate fate could only be ordained by the hand of God." A little dramatic. From a 4th century text, likely Byzantine in origin. "Verily, this locale stands as the vestibule to the celestial realm beyond our earthly abode, for hither lies the limit where mortal feet may not tread. The splendor that graces this hallowed ground suffices as testament to its verity." The next one is a document written by a 17th century entrepreneur and explorer, John Russell. 5th of August, the year of our Lord, 1626. "On this present day, the hour of man's ascendancy hath arrived. Lo, we have accomplished the craft of aerial conveyance, a marvel to behold. Fabric unfurls beneath the radiant beams of dawn, whilst his majesty's ensign dances aloft in the breeze. This day heralds our ascent into the heavens, to venture unto those far-off realms that lie beyond the confines of our terrestrial sphere, realms hitherto untrodden by mortal foot, and from whence few have returned. Verily, the mechanical contrivance, in its semblance of sentience, hath voiced its dissent against our enterprise. Yet let it be known henceforth that the apprehensions of the Gauls shall not today dissuade the steadfast resolve of the noble progeny of England." And the last one is a document transliterated from its original, now lost text. "Before us, the earth seemed to fall away into nothingness, a sheer drop into oblivion that stretched as far as the eye could see. The horizon, once a distant promise of new horizons and uncharted territories, now marked the boundary between existence and the great unknown." Addendum 4. From the Journal of Lord Theodore Thomas Blackwood. Discovered among the documents catalogued within the Tower of Sunset is an excerpt from the Journal of Lord Theodore Thomas Blackwood, a self-described explorer, naturalist, and conqueror of uncharted realms. Notably, Lord Blackwood is contained at Site 19 and has been classified as SCP 1867. The Journal of Lord Blackwood, found within the Tower of Sunset archives, displays the characteristic bravado of its author throughout, up until the entry describing Lord Blackwood's team having found 8001. Thereafter, the writing becomes noticeably concise and abbreviated, describing in short how his team surveyed the island, briefly spoke to the clever automaton masquerading as a Parisian who attends diligently to the illumination of the lighthouse, before saying a prayer and departing to the east. The text of this journal was found to be so out of character for its supposed author that, shortly after having returned from his initial expedition to 8001, Dr. Mann sought out a meeting with 1867 to discuss it. SCP-1867. "I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me." 1867. "Well, of course. It's not as though I find myself engaged in many other pursuits whilst confined to my chambers for these past several years. Recently I took part in a sailing expedition to, the high seas, a favorite of my own during my youth." "So I have gathered, yeah. We arrived at our destination and discovered a journal of yours there we had not seen before, and not one I believe you've mentioned in the past." Is that so? I dare say. I've been quite thorough in my examination of my various past affairs with you and your associates. I can't imagine what I may have missed. Can you produce the document? I can, in fact. I copied some of the text here. Dr. Mann then presents SCP-1867 with a transcription of the original text. 1867 moves to the edge of its aquarium and takes a moment to read the journal. Ah, yes. This was written by you then, right? It was. We noticed some irregularities in the writing, starting at this section here. I wanted to ask if you had another individual write this section, or... No, sir. This journal was penned by my hand. Then the change in tone? If you are anticipating some kind of dark revelation here, I must regrettably inform you that your expectations shall not be met. We just found it peculiar. Your writing generally has such abundance. But here you've found the literal edge of the world and can't spare but a handful of paragraphs describing it? Were you expecting something more? I'd have to admit I was. And so was I. The expedition that led us to that locale was fraught with danger at every turn. We braved fierce tempests, encountered a fearsome kraken upon the tumultuous waves, repelled assaults from both pirates and mutineers, all in pursuit of our dearly sought destination, the very brink of existence. And then what? That was it. We reached the edge, and there was no further to go. I don't understand. You discovered something that should not exist. You returned from it. Something I'm told was once a near impossibility. In your many tales and tellings, all the incredible things you claim to have seen and experienced, what could be more monumental than this? Indeed. That is the crux of the matter, is it not, Doctor? There was perpetually another adventure waiting, another creature to vanquish, another maiden to rescue, or foreign regime to topple. My existence has been one of myriad distant horizons, and in my fervent pursuit of them, I have witnessed and accomplished remarkable feats. However, Addendum 5, the Journal of Adon Sedano, Keeper of the Tower. Naught but emptiness. You felt nothing at all. That place, the roaring water and the mist, that is the last horizon. There are none beyond it, not for you or me or anyone else. It is the edge of the map, a place we cannot pass beyond. There are no more stories to be told there. 1867 pauses and turns to move back deeper into his aquarium. Truthfully, Doctor, I did experience one profound feeling when I saw that place. I realized the world is not nearly as big as I had once dreamt it to be. That morning I descended from the tower as the rays of the sun stretched their golden fingers across the island, casting long shadows that danced upon the edges of the tower's walls. There, beneath the shade of the ancient rosewoods, sat the aged watchman, his gaze fixed upon the distant western sky. His countenance, weathered by the years of solitary toil in the care of our archives, wore a rare tranquillity as I approached to offer my aid for the day's tasks, and perhaps a tome to occupy his leisure. It is his smile that lingers most vividly in my memory, a serene expression that had eluded him for many a season. The passage of time had etched deep furrows upon his visage, yet on that morn his gruff demeanor gave way to a moment of geniality as he bid me join him in silent contemplation, the morning light shimmering upon the drops of water. Inquiring after my youth, he sought tales of my past life in the Holy Land, of my lineage and upbringing. Recollections of distant memories stirred within me as I recounted my aspirations of exploration and worldly discovery, while he, in turn, recounted his own past endeavors and aspirations. Once, he confessed, I harbored dreams of following in my father's footsteps as a carpenter, a shipwright, Yet fate had other designs. In the ensuing discourse, he regaled me with tales of his travels, his loves, his fears, and the myriad wonders and oddities encountered in his journeys across distant lands. Enthralled, I listened intently as he spun his tales into the weft of time. As twilight draped its cloak upon the world, he turned to me with a gaze brimming with fervent resolve, as though seeking answers within my very soul. He spoke of the enigmatic nature of our abode, where countless odysseys had reached their terminus, their mysteries left unresolved. In a voice weighted with solemnity, he posed a question that lingered in the air, like the echoes of a forgotten lament. What worth, he asked, did such answers hold for a man? What worth did they hold for me? Bereft of an adequate response, I could only ponder his words in silence. That night, he bestowed upon me his cherished journal, bidding me to add it to our repository come the morrow. Tomorrow, he declared, let it join the annals of our record. I fear I have not more to impart. And with the dawn, I woke to find him gone, leaving behind naught but folded robes and sandals beneath the ancient rosewoods. His absence lingered as a silent testament to the transient nature of existence, and I never beheld his countenance again. The last addendum, Addendum 6, is another dialogue between Dr. Ivan Mann and SCP-8001-A upon Dr. Ivan Mann's return to 8001-A in 1948. 8001-A had approached Dr. Mann while he was transcribing his own recorded notes, allowing him to easily record their conversation. There, now we're ready. What's on your mind? I was wondering, you have spent much time here studying the archive. I have spent much more time than you doing the same. I am wondering now what your summation is of these texts, to see if my own analysis somehow falls short of biological humans. I sincerely doubt you have any such shortcomings. As for these books, it's difficult to say. So many of them end the same way. They're either delusional and preparing to sail over the edge and to their deaths, or they're distraught about what this place is, what it means. What do you mean? Well, what kind of person finds a place like this? Sailors, generally. No, I mean, what are the characteristics of the kind of person who would seek out a place like this? Who sees the edge of the map and desires to travel to it? Those with an intrepid spirit, I would suppose. Adventurers, explorers. Yes, those who want to write stories and have their stories be known. They aren't so different from myself, you know. In many ways, what I'm doing here is something of an adventure as well. The information we're gathering may be different, but the reason we're doing it is the same. You see a part of the map that isn't filled in, and you go there to find out what's missing. I see. So they come here, and they find this place, and they realize this is all it is. They can't travel any further past this point. Even now, with our modern technology, the very nature of this place is a wall beyond which the knowledge of man does not extend. All those stories and all those storytellers, this place is an anathema to them. It's the back of the book. I understand. I have often wondered about them, the ones I have met. I have spent a considerable amount of time here. My focus has been on maintaining this tower, and the library, and the grounds. Maintaining the graves on the hill, and tending to the trees and the grasses. I admit, I have not often considered the meaning of this place, or what a place like this means to those who find it. I once considered it perhaps a deficiency in the construction of the form I now inhabit, but perhaps not. What do you mean? I once told you about how I came to be here, and told you about my friend Armand. In truth, I believe that before my transfiguration we had been more than friends, for the tenderness he showed me during the early years of my new life was, in retrospect, unusually sincere. There were many years at the beginning where I was unable to move adequately to help him with the tasks around the island after Aladapo passed away. And it would be even more years until I was able to speak to him. But every day he would spend time with me, working on the mechanisms that keep me alive, making me more of what I had been before. At night, we would sit together outside, and he would sing to me songs I must have loved once, songs like from a dream. When I could speak, he helped to teach me about what I had lost. We became lost in our books, in these ancient scrolls and catalogs. I think Armand realized then what I would not understand for some time after. The time I had been granted was significantly more than what he had left. Our work was feverish, but he was never unkind. He would tell me how happy he was to be here with me at the end of all things. He told me that even if we could not be together forever, he was content to have the chance to be with me now. What happened to him? I cannot explain it, not truly. One day I realized he had grown old. He was slow to rise and had trouble seeing, but he was still tender and kind. I remember one day we were sitting together, speaking as we often did about how this place hadn't ever come to exist. He was quiet for a time, and then told me that he did not know for certain, but that he believed that there had once been many places like this in the world, parts of the map that had not been explored. All of them, he said, would eventually be filled in, but not this one. What a miracle, he had said. What a miracle to not know what comes next. What greater mystery could there be than this? He walked out past the end of the pier one night. I ran to him, afraid that he would fall, but he never fell. He took one step, and then another, and continued to walk as the sun set in front of him. He turned back one more time before the sun slipped into the darkness below, and for just a moment I could have sworn he was young again. He smiled at me and waved, and then he was gone. Maybe there is nothing beyond these falls, Ivan. Maybe this really is the end of the story. There are so many who believe that to be true, but perhaps it's not the back of the book. Perhaps this is just the turning of the page. Perhaps even here, at the edge of the world, there are still stories left to be written. I really enjoy this story because it kind of instills that sense of existential dread in a bit of a melancholic way, but also a bit of a nostalgic way and a little bit of a hopeful way as well. It's not entirely negative. It's kind of a mixture of, you know, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the end, but also the enjoyment of the moment, the enjoyment of what you have, the excitement of not knowing what comes next, the excitement of mystery. Yeah, not a classic kind of SCP story, but more of like, you know, I really like the ones that kind of give you the existential dread. All right, better stop this before I start rambling on. So, hope you enjoyed the video and enjoy your night. Peace out.